Speaking of amazing people, though, we actually have an amazing person, amazing guest joining us this evening as well. Some of you know him. I saw him in the foyer earlier, and I saw people hugging him and saying hello to him. So he is certainly no stranger to some of you, but to some of you, this will be the first time you've ever met Tom. But if you live in the city of Mountain View or Los Altos Hills, this is a guy you should know. And if you live slightly outside of that, you should certainly know him as well. Tom Myers is the executive director of the Community Services Agency of Mountain View and Los Altos Hill. We'll just call it CSA from now on, a nonprofit social service agency serving low-income and homeless individuals and families. He has been the head of CSA for over 20 years, and he has worked in a variety of different fields, fighting for justice, equality, and inclusion, from locally here in San Jose to his time in the Peace Corps in Africa to forming LGBTQ and HIV education programs in Washington, D.C. and here. He didn't found them in Washington, D.C., but also in here. Tom is the past chair of the Emergency Assistance Network of Santa Clara County. He is also part of the American Leadership Forum, a cohort of nonprofit CEOs working on diversity, inclusion, and equity and leadership in the nonprofit sector. He currently sits on the board of director of Hope's Corner, which many people here at Beth Am are also familiar with, a food program that serves hot meals. He helps out in many of our affordable housing developments, nonprofit developers, and he sits on the task force developing a post-pandemic food security action plan for Santa Clara County. He's the member of one of our neighbor and our most treasured partners of churches, Christ Episcopal Church in Los Altos, one of Beth Am's key interfaith partners. Although he's not Jewish, I'll call him a mensch. He certainly is on the mensch. I had the honor of being on the CSA board for 6 years, and I know that there are many people at Congregation Beth Am who have been on the CSA board, who have volunteered or worked in CSA in some capacities. Milt Liebhauber was a member of the CSA board, and Kathy Lazarus was a member of the president of the CSA board. He's sitting next to Dan Rich, who is the vice president of the CSA board. So Dan, do we have good things in store for you in the near future, I have a feeling? Jane Besson, a member of Beth Am, Michaela Hellman-Tincher, and I see Vivian Wildman-Cohn here, and she is just an amazing person who helps coordinate some of our monthly volunteering at CSA in the CSA Food Pantry. If that is something that you'd like to participate in at any point or like to get involved in some of the volunteering work at CSA, please reach out to me or reach out to the front office. But it is a total delight for me to welcome Tom Myers, one of our local heroes and a friend of mine, up to join us on the Beth Am Bima this Shabbat. So let's clap for Tom as well. So.
Oh, okay.
Why don't I give this to you?
Okay.
That way you can wander a little.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Oh. Thank you. Can you all hear me? Great. Thank you very much for hosting me here tonight. It's my pleasure to be here. I have very strong connections to Congregation Beth Am, as was mentioned, and feel very privileged to be invited here. Not only did I see people who have been here to see us, I saw some of my neighbors here as well. So it definitely feels like coming home. As Rabbi Prosnit said, I am a member of Christ Church, and I grew up an Episcopalian. And I still am an Episcopalian, but I did grow up an Episcopalian. And even though I am not the most faithful churchgoer, I do feel like faith has definitely informed me and informed very much my motivations for going into the line of work that I do. In fact, I would go so far as to say my faith brings me to my work. It's a faith that it's more than just a faith in God or an understanding of the divine. It's a faith in humankind. It's a faith in the work that we all do to make the world a better place. And sometimes that can seem really, really hard. The world does not always seem like a good place. I think particularly these days, it can be very, very difficult. And I think that even here on a very local level, the world can feel very hard sometimes. I know that for me, faith is a part of what keeps me strong. And like I said, it's not just a faith in God. I would not particularly consider myself to be a particularly religious person. Certainly as an Episcopalian, it's not what you would call a very fundamentalist faith, but it is a faith in the strength of humankind that drives me. But for me, my faith is not just going to church on a Sunday morning. In fact, I refer to myself as a CEO Episcopalian, Christmas and Easter only. But that's enough for me, as long as I have that relationship with my faith. And my faith can be what leads me to be compassionate. It helps me to have empathy. It helps me to take the leap of faith sometimes in helping other people that maybe don't necessarily want me to help them, or helping other people who don't necessarily seem like the kind of people that most of us would want to help. You have to take that leap of faith sometimes and do that. And that can be very hard to go out there and try and make good in the world. It's a choice. God gives us the divinity of faith, but it's a choice for us to go out and try and make the world a better place. Every day at Community Services Agency, it requires a great deal of effort on the part of all of us that are on the staff, the hundreds of volunteers. Vivian, who organizes our Monday morning volunteers once a month, she knows it takes effort and it takes strength to do that. It requires stamina, because when you go in and you organize the food, if you stick around, you'll see lines going outside and around the building, waiting to get in and to get that food. It's difficult sometimes to see that refugee family with nothing that shows up at the doorstep, that's living in their car. It takes strength to be able to, just this morning, for example, we just this morning actually, yes, as an example, we had a situation where a landlord was about to evict a family, and we literally had to take money and write out a check and get that to the landlord to keep that family from being evicted. And that took strength. That took the strength of people much stronger than me to get that check to the landlord. And it certainly took strength on the part of that family to have the courage to face something like an eviction. But I think that putting that effort into it is so incredibly important, because that's part of what we need to do. One of the things I really like in the Jewish tradition is the tzedakah, the whole idea that you give of your charity. But what I love about tzedakah that's a little different than just giving out of charity is tzedakah, from my understanding, from my Episcopalian understanding, tzedakah really is all about what you get out of the giving. It's about you getting as much out of the giving as the person who's receiving your charitable work. So when we do the charitable work, we're also getting back. And there are tremendous, tremendous rewards. Those rewards are great. I always joke that working in the nonprofit field, I'll never be the highest paid guy in the room. But I do go home at night and know that my efforts paid off in someone having food on the table, or a family not being evicted today. That family is still in their apartment. I go home knowing that even though the work is hard, and right now it's particularly hard because we've got some real staffing shortages going on, but even though that work is hard, that work is good, because it is giving me the knowledge and the peace and the understanding and the calm, if you will, of knowing that we have done good and that we have made the world a better place. A little bit, but we've made the world a better place. So I invite you, if you want to know more about what we are and who we are, to go find us on the website. I know a lot of you already are very familiar with us. I would talk to Rabbi Prosnit, I would talk to Dan Rich, I would talk to Jane Besson, I would talk to Vivian, especially talk to Vivian because she'll get you to go to work volunteering down there. Really important. But I think that more than that, whether it's CSA or anywhere else, I encourage you to do that tzedakah and go out and give charity to the world, but also to receive it yourself. And if, with your indulgence, I'd like to read something that really struck me in the prayers today. May I? Of course. I'm not gunning for your job, I promise. All right. This struck me because we work so much with homeless individuals. And I don't know if it struck you as well, but grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. And that struck me because today I know that there are people who have shelter because of the work that we do. I know that there are people facing homelessness that need that shelter. And I think that with our tzedakah, our community tzedakah, if you will, I think that we can continue to make the world a better place, a little bit at a time. So thank you very much for hosting me today.